How far can you go in that thing? It doesn't work in the winter though, right? These are some of the first questions I get about our electric car, and frankly they're the same questions that I had 2 years ago. So now that we're in our second winter driving electric, I wanted to share some thoughts. First, everyone's needs and driving style is different, so this is ballpark math just to give you a rough estimate of how things work in the cold. Second, cold weather affects all vehicles. In a recent road trip, I was driving a Toyota Corolla, a fully gas vehicle, and in that, the computer estimated that we'd driven 408 miles, while our actual distance traveled was 341. That's a 67-mile difference, so keep in mind that range loss isn't just an EV thing. Third, when a video like this comes out, it makes it seem like all EV owners do is think about range and they obsess about it, and if I get an EV, I'm going to be the same way, just constantly worried. But I have my battery icon set to percentage instead of number of miles, so I'm not thinking about a number, I'm thinking about a percentage, and I'm thinking about how full my tank is. Day to day, I don't think about range. So let's talk about range. Here's a list of EVs, sorted by range, including a couple hopefully launching in 2020 with their estimated longest ranges. People like to point out that the average person only drives 30 miles a day. And although that may be true, everyone also has exceptions. Weekend trips, family out of town, children's sporting events or activities, etc. If an EV is going to be your only car, you're going to need more range than 50 miles. And even then, you'll need to rent or find other transit for long-distance travel. So let's look at everyday range. For the health of the battery, you'll probably want to charge to about 80% on a daily basis. Then for your mental health, you probably won't be driving it too far below 10% without seriously looking for a charging option. And day-to-day, that's more than enough miles in most vehicles. But then we decide on that average day to drive mostly highway speeds. Like in a gas car, your miles per gallon will suffer some, so we'll see a range loss here. It'll vary by the car's efficiency, but I picked 15% across the board. Now that average day is below freezing, or as can easily happen in Minnesota, below 0 Fahrenheit. That battery pack is going to be sluggish to warm up, and cabin heating will use up extra range. So if we take off an additional 15%, you can see some of these ranges are getting very low. A typical case for me would be visiting family 50 miles away. On a cold, windy day, going 100 miles round trip on an unexpected visit would only be possible in 8 of these vehicles, 2 of which have yet to come out. If I was there for a while and could plug into a 110 outlet long enough to gain 10% more, that would bring the total to 11 possible vehicles. Now let's assume we were doing that 100-mile cold round trip again, but we knew in advance, so we leave with the battery charged to 100%. That gives 14 vehicles with a comfortable range, and if we could plug in for that extra 10%, that would bring in a 15th option. To put that in the perspective of time, if you were to drive in those conditions at 75 miles an hour, this is how long you would be able to keep driving before you had to stop and charge. Again, these are rough estimates to show an overall picture. So sure, the average person only drives 30 miles a day, but when they're thinking of their next car purchase, they're thinking of these exceptions as well. Can a person get by with an EV with less than 200 miles of range? Yes, but I think they'd have to own an EV first to know that and be comfortable with it. And to get them to switch, a lot of people I've talked to have said they would need to see a 400-mile range car before they'd be comfortable switching. That would look like this on our table. A trucker I spoke with at a supercharger this summer said he's open to the idea of owning an EV for his personal car, but it would need to be 500 miles at least. That would look like this. As of now, only Tesla's Cybertruck and Roadster have been bold enough to make promises of ranges that high, and both of those are a couple years away. For our family's needs, living in Minnesota, I wouldn't buy a vehicle with under 250 miles of range. With our current Model S, which has a range of 265 miles, I've been minorly inconvenienced a couple of times, mostly due to my own poor planning. But seriously, most of the time I don't think about it. And I know here in Minnesota there are a lot of EV owners who make do with less range. I think once we see EVs hitting that 400 to 500 mile range, we're going to see mass adoption. But then a couple of years after that, I think we're probably going to see things level back down to between 200 and 300 mile range once people are used to being in that ecosystem and understand it. Also by then, the fast charging networks will be far more robust. Let me know your thoughts or cold weather driving experiences below. Thanks for watching and have a great day.